what I've been talking about is a 3D printer bill that's coming out of Washington State and another one out of New York. Now, of course, they have created this boogeyman called ghost guns out there. Sounds scary, doesn't it? They're going, it's just like assault rifles. Don't talk to me about assault rifles when you got masked federal police sticking guns in everybody's face. I mean, it's crazy, just like Kristi Noem, except these guys are doing it intentionally. She didn't know what she was doing. But this is in Washington State, and this is something that really, it's hard to find any information much on it. Lance is the one who found this because he's very much involved in 3D printing. And following that, of course, we're also interested in guns as well, but it was actually through the 3D printing side that he found out about it. And a lot of people in the 3D printing community have just dismissed this out of hand, saying, well, I don't care about guns. Fine, stop the ghost guns. Those things are scary anyway. Don't talk to me about ghost gun busters, right?
Most people in the 3D printing community are against it, but I'm seeing a lot of people that don't really appreciate just how bad this is. I'll get into more of the stuff they're missing later as you describe this.
Yeah, a guy who goes into this a great deal on YouTube is, what's his name? Legal Moses, I think?
Loyal Moses was the channel that I saw, did a very in-depth coverage of this.
Legal Moses. But anyway, he's explained to a lot of these people who came back to him and said, well, I don't really care. Do ban them. I want to see them banned. And he says, you don't understand how this is going to impact you. And in a really ham-fisted way, it's going to pretty much make it impossible for people to do 3D printing. If it is possible, it's going to radically raise the price of 3D printers, and people are using them for a lot of different things. You can use them for fun, but you got a lot of farmers who are using them to print parts and things like that, replacement parts. But of course, this all gets back into the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, where people like corporations like John Deere don't want you doing any repairs on your stuff. They want to maintain the fiction that even after you buy the tractor from them, they own it for life, and you're not supposed to do anything with it.
Difference is the John Deere stuff is coming from the John Deere company. This would be legal mandates saying that you have to, as a manufacturer, put in restrictions to prevent the end user from modifying or repairing their own equipment.
That's
and
right.
This is for more than just 3D printers. It specifically mentions CNC machines, and it's any type of device that can receive information from a computer to create an object in real life. So that includes CNC machines, laser cutters, a whole bunch of other devices.
That's right. Yeah, anything like that. And so it follows, like Lance said, it follows a very familiar pattern, doesn't it? When we look at speech prohibitions, the government was always saying, well, we're not banning any. There's a law against censorship, but we're not censoring people. It's the social media companies. It's YouTube that's censoring people, right? We don't have anything to do with that. And then we find out, of course, we knew behind the lines that they were dropping hints, and sometimes it wasn't even a hint. Sometimes it was like, do this, get rid of this person. And this is the type of thing. There's a long history of the government doing this kind of tactic. There's two kind of tactics that are very sneaky and very just evil tactics that the government has used for the longest time. One of them I talk about with the pandemic, the bribe and blackmail tactic. You like doing business with the federal government? Well, we're going to cut that business off if you don't mandate vaccines for all your employees, that type of thing. Or to the state, you like to have that money for your sports? Well, you better put the boys in the girls' bathroom or whatever. So they've used that type of thing all along, and they've done that very explicitly with a lot of these policies from the federal government. But when it comes to corporations, they've done things like that for censorship. They want the social media companies or YouTube or whatever to censor certain topics and to censor and ban the people who talk about those topics. And so they apply pressure to them, and the pressure is sometimes behind closed doors, sometimes it's implicit, but it is still coming from the government. We've seen the documents now that Elon Musk released some of those. And so this is the same type of thing. They're going to go after the 3D printer machines by 3D printing of guns, by going after the machine manufacturers and saying, if you don't put in the kinds of things that we're demanding in order to police this, then we're going to hit you with a $75,000 fine. It's a felony. You're going to go to jail, all kinds of very stiff penalties that are there. And so the harebrained scheme that they've come up with, which is really not going to work, and in a sense, there is a great deal of parallel between this and the social media censorship that we saw happening, because this is a First Amendment right to have these plans and to send them around. That has been tested by Cody Wilson all the way up to, I think, the Supreme Court. And they upheld the fact that the government could not demand that these files be taken down that show you how to manufacture gun parts, for example, or anything else. It's a First Amendment right, not just a Second Amendment. And so what they're doing is they're coming after a First Amendment right that's been upheld by the Supreme Court as well. Yeah.
And this specifically goes against that. It makes owning the files a crime. If you have on your hard drive files that could be used to print a firearm or firearm accessory, even if it's an incomplete file, but if it has enough of the similarities, and they have a new type of technology that looks at G-code and can reconstruct what the object it would make would look like. So it's not a matter of just change a few lines and now the checksum doesn't match and you can print it. It will see if it's, say, 80% similar to a banned item. And if that's the case, this law adds a rebuttal presumption, is the legal term, which is the opposite of presumed innocence. It is presumed guilt. A rebuttal presumption is something that is assumed to be true by the court unless proven otherwise. So you have a rebuttal presumption that you were planning on making and distributing that firearm. So you would be given the penalty of someone that made a firearm illegally on this bill if you just own those files. Even if someone just sent it to an email address that you own, and you didn't know that, you now have those files on your hard drive. You are now in possession of digital contraband.
Yeah, just like if you got kiddie porn on your computer or kiddie porn in your email stuff, right? And, of course, a rebuttal assumption, that's a nice piece of legalese to hide the fact that you're guilty until proven innocent. And that's another thing that we've seen from these people all along. And really, this whole idea that the government is limited in terms of things that it can do, in terms of searches, in terms of censorship and things like that. But they can get a private corporation to do it. That goes back to the middle of the 20th century with the creation of CIA and NSA and these other creeps and criminals. That was what they were doing with AT&T, the phone company. Said, well, you have the phone numbers of these people. That's your private, that's owned by AT&T. So if you want to give us all of their phone records and tell us everybody that's called them and everybody that they've called and when they did it, that's up to you. You can turn that over. We don't need to have a search warrant. You can just voluntarily turn it over to us. And you'd like to do that, wouldn't you? Because don't you like that monopoly that we've given AT&T for phones at the time? That's the way this whole thing works. It started with AT&T. That's why, by the way, they had the Church Committee hearings in the Senate to look at the CIA, and why they had the Pike Committee hearings in the House to look at the NSA. It was because of that. And the outcome of it was the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act saying, got to get a warrant. Well, this is stuff we can't tell people about it, so it's got to be secret. So we've got to create this new structure over here, this Star Chamber Court, the FISA court. We're going to have one judge, and he'll say, yes, you can listen to everybody on Verizon. How about that? And basically come up with a general warrant, essentially. And so that's how we got here. I mean, it's all come post-World War II, all a part of the national security state, and it just keeps metastasizing. But they keep using the same tactic because it's worked for so long. It's worked since the 1950s to say, well, if this corporation has got the data, they can turn it over to us. The idea that you are guilty until you're proven innocent, I mean, they have taken that on steroids through the war on drugs. And so now with this, just having these files on your computer or your email account, it's like having kiddie porn, and they'll come after you. And so it's going to add a great deal of expense and technical complexity to the 3D printers, because they're going to have to go in and reference every time you want to try to print something. They've got to go reference a file and make sure that this isn't something that is prohibited by the government to print. Isn't that amazing? And of course,
absolutely any device that receives information from a computer, and like I said, the bill specifically mentions CNC machines as well as 3D printers, but it covers much more than just 3D printers and CNC machines. And all of them would have to first, whenever you give it anything to make, would first have to check the files against the blacklist to make sure that you have the permission from the government to make what you want to make.
Yeah. You will make nothing and you'll be happy. We're going to such dark tyranny anymore. It's just amazing, isn't it? We got to somehow get control of this, but it just keeps getting worse all the time. So manufacturers must attest under penalty of perjury to the state attorney general there in Washington that their printers meet these standards. And so if there's a bug in it somewhere, okay, well, now we're going to come after you for perjury.
And that thing of attest that their printers meet these regulations, that also means that they can't let the end user modify or flash their own hardware, software stuff to it. It's got to be heavily locked down like a John Deere tractor, as we mentioned before.
Wouldn't it be nice if you had to have the CEOs of big pharmaceutical companies? What if they had to testify under penalty of perjury that they had tested their products for safety or even efficacy, right? Wouldn't that be a nice thing? We don't care about that. We just want to make sure that you don't have any guns that you could use to protect yourself against the federalized police like ICE or something like that, as they're ramping that up. The Attorney General will establish rules and maintain a database of firearm blueprint files to support detection. And that's the other issue that some of the people who are thinking about this broadly understand that means that they can prohibit anything, right? You like to print your Star Wars Stormtrooper to set on your desk with a 3D printer? Well, Disney might have something to say about that. They'll get that put into the files or whatever. It doesn't end. It extends to everything. So it can escalate up to a Class C felony for corporations, penalties up to 5 years in prison, fines up to $15,000. And so this is something that New York is doing something similar to this. This bill in Washington State, I think, is up for a vote today. Is that correct, Lance?
I believe so. I'd have to check.
So if you have any, if you're in Washington State, get on the phone today to your state representatives and talk to them about this. But, and you know, I do have people listen to me in Washington State. It's kind of funny. When I've gone to heavily Democrat areas, leftist areas like Washington State, that's been the places where I've been recognized the most. I was really surprised once about that. But anyway, the bill has sparked significant debate. Supporters citing public safety and the risk of untraceable ghost guns, while critics argue that it may stifle innovation, infringe on digital rights, and impact legitimate industries like aerospace and manufacturing. Okay, now that's kind of an interesting, another aspect of this that Lance and I have talked about. Aerospace. What do you think they're talking about there? They couldn't be talking about printing drones like they do in Ukraine, could they? Lance, you think that might be it?
Yep.
Because those are going to be a lot more effective weapons in an asymmetric war against the government than firearms are going to be. We can see that already in Ukraine. And so they don't want you manufacturing drones or any drone parts like that either. So there's a lot of different aspects to this.
I think it really ties in with the whole networked resistance thing, the net war thing that we covered on Monday, where if you had a whole population of citizens with 3D printers, 3D printed drones that are kamikaze drones are going to be the future of warfare. That is the future of asymmetric warfare and guerrilla warfare. That is actually as important, if not more important, than being able to print guns when it comes to resisting a tyrannical government.
That's right. Absolutely right. And so here we are again. They are shutting this thing down. And guess where it's happening? At the state level. That's why it is so important to get involved at the state level, not at the federal level. You know, you've had Trump has tried to shut down the 10th Amendment multiple ways. You know, one of them, of course, the so-called Genesis Act, where they want to pave the way for artificial intelligence. You might as well call it the Genesis 6 Act. But yeah, no state laws that are going to do anything to inhibit our artificial intelligence rollout. But on the state and local level, that's really where the rubber meets the road. And so if you're in Washington State, you need to be involved with this. The vote is coming up today, I believe. And of course, I don't know what the schedule is for the similar bill in New York, but that's where this all is right now. The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at davidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. davidknightshow.com.